in front of Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament, a firmly locked gate, a lot of security today. But 2 days ago, it was the attacker who crashed his car on the other side of that fence, came around the corner and went through this gate, stabbed and killed a policeman, and then was shot dead. Again, today, a lot of security, a lot of tourists, and a lot of traffic. All the roads around this building open today. The UK open for business.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Eric Bolling in for Bill O'Reilly, and in the second personal story segment tonight, the man behind yesterday's deadly terror attack in London. Officials have identified 52-year-old Khalid Masood as the attacker, a man with a long rap sheet who had been under previous investigation for extremist ties. Masood was a British-born citizen, and his brutal attack is highlighting the threat of homegrown terror.
People are cowed, people are afraid, and people are not united. Great Britain is more disunited. It is absolutely divided more than any time in its past.
Joining us now to analyze from Washington, Jim Hansen from the Center for Security Policy, and from Los Angeles, terror expert and analyst Aaron Cohen. Aaron, we'll start with you. So ISIS basically claims responsibility, saying he's a soldier of the jihad. They're using vehicles now. How do you stop any of this?
Well, I think it starts with the immigration. You got to make sure that, look, Europe's been in trouble for a long time, Eric. East London, you know, has been in great trouble or grave danger for some time right now in terms of the mesh of you know, Sharia believers and ideologists who live within those communities. That's number one. That's all intel. Two, you physically have to have things like bollards, very simple security mechanisms in place around strategic targets like the Parliament building. And those bollards can physically stop a truck or a car from ramming in. And then the other one, I'm going to say that London and the UK needs to revamp its entire police forces, because I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to be able to stop terrorists, you know, wielding automatic rifles and using cars to smash civilians with bobbies. And I know that their CT unit did a great job of responding. They're armed, but I think it's time for the UK to start looking at arming all of their police officers.
Guys, I have to do this. I'm sorry I have to do this. We're going to take a look in. We're going to dip in. Paul Ryan had just delivered a couple of remarks on Capitol Hill, and there you saw him leaving the press conference right there. I guess they were very brief remarks. Okay, let me bring these guys back in. Jim, let me talk to you a little bit about this. This Masood was under surveillance by the British, basically British intelligence, but then left to go on his own and ended up killing people, 4 people, and himself dying.
Here's the problem, Eric. You can identify people, but if you don't look at what's causing them to do this, you're never going to solve the problem. I mean, there's an issue right now with, I don't care whether it's homegrown terrorism, I don't care how they kill people. They're killing for a cause, and we need to accept that, and we need to deal with that. Pew International is a lovely liberal organization that polled Muslims worldwide, asked them a simple question: do you support suicide bombing that kills civilians? 28% said some form of yes. That's hundreds of millions of people around the world who believe they can kill non-believers to further their cause, and believers. So we need to deal with that, and we need to attack the ideology and point out that those are the bad Muslims. There are also Muslims we can partner with.
Aaron, you have to attack the ideology, because in this case, this guy was British-born. He was self-radicalized, and he didn't use a gun or whatever. He used his car and an 8-inch knife.
And what we need
these are tactics. Go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what we need to do is point out that it doesn't matter where he's born. He's in the community, and we need the Muslims in that community to help. They need to look at the people around them in their mosques, in their communities, and say, we know this guy's bad. We want them to partner with us against the extremists.
Okay, go ahead, Aaron. You were going to comment on that?
Oh, let's get, like, I completely agree with Jim. You know, he and I, we've parked our cars in the same counter-terror garage for a long time. You know, these communities have to condemn these acts of violence. We've heard this story over and over again. But from the security perspective, purely tactical perspective, London, again, law enforcement, I think the UK needs to start looking at arming their law enforcement completely. The reason why is because here's what we learned in Israel over the last 60 years of dealing with terror. For every second you waste, the moment the terror act starts to go, another innocent life is killed. For every round you're not firing at a knife-wielding terrorist or a car trying to smash into a crowd of dozens of people, for every second wasted, another innocent is killed. So Eric, the real tactic here is time sensitive. You don't have time. So to wait for a CT unit or a counter-terror attack unit to respond, it's just not quick enough. The police need to be armed, and again,
you guys are right.
I'm with Jim. This stuff has to get rooted in.
Unfortunately, we live in a world now where we have to harden every single target, and it's a dangerous place. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
This is claiming responsibility for Wednesday's horrific attack that killed 4 people, including a Utah man in London. And today, Belgian officials arrest a man suspected of attempting a similar attack in Belgium. Correspondent Benjamin Hall is following the latest developments of both cases. Joins us now live from London. Good evening, Benjamin.
Good evening, Brett. Well, yes, just in the last half hour, we found out that a 4th person had died from yesterday's attack. It was a 75-year-old man, and they've just taken him off his life support machine. So 29 wounded, 6 remain critical. The flags in Britain flew at half-staff today as the country remembered yesterday's brutal terror attack. Early this morning, members of Parliament met to offer their condolences. Theresa May saying the country would not bow to terrorism.
We are not afraid, and our resolve will never waver in the face of terrorism. And we meet here in the oldest of all parliaments, because we know that democracy and the values it entails will always prevail.
As police begin piecing together the events, ISIS, via its official news agency Amaq, claimed responsibility. Soon afterwards, police released the identity of the gunman. His name is Masoud Khalid, 52. He was born in Britain and had a spate of arrests for possession of weapons and assault. He had also been under investigation for extremism, though the government claims he had dropped off the radar long ago. Today, police arrested 7 suspects in major operations, mainly in Birmingham, where Khalid lived. It's the city from which more terrorists have come in the UK than any others. Police, though, continue to claim he operated alone. The victims came from 11 different countries, including Germany, China, South Korea, France, Ireland, Italy, Greece, and tragically, also an American. Kurt Cochran, 54, from Utah, ran a recording studio business. He was visiting London with his wife to celebrate their 25th wedding anniversary and visit her parents. They were hit on the bridge, and she remains in critical condition. Today, President Trump tweeted his condolences, saying, "A great American, Kurt Cochran, was killed in the London terror attack. My prayers and condolences are with his family and friends." And there have been similar outpourings of grief from around the world. Many people seeing this not only as an attack on the UK Parliament, but an attack on Western values in general. Brett?
Benjamin, in Belgium today, another incident involving a vehicle.
Yeah, that's right. A very similar attack, in fact, which luckily was foiled this time in Antwerp, Brussels. A man of Tunisian descent was trying to drive his car at high speed through a shopping street, forcing pedestrians to jump out the way. Now, the military luckily intercepted him, but that car was found to contain weapons in the back and a military uniform. So it does seem as if an attack there was also thwarted. And these vehicles being used as weapons seems to be one of the new favorites of ISIS, and it is becoming increasingly hard to know how to defend against them.
Yeah.
Brett?
Benjamin Hall, live in London. Benjamin, thank you.
I'm Laura Ingle for Fox News. ISIS now claiming responsibility for the deadly London terror attack. Police are conducting raids across the United Kingdom as the investigation grows after a suspected terrorist used his car to mow down pedestrians on the Westminster Bridge before trying to attack Parliament. Joining us now with new insights into this attack, defense specialist and Fox Firepower columnist Allison Berry. Thank you so much for being here. You are very important to talk to today because you have not only the unique perspective of your job, but also of where you live. So you live in London, and you are literally coming to the set out of breath because you just got off of a flight. Yes. So you were there. So let's talk about the site of the attack. I want people to understand the Westminster Bridge and Parliament. You've spent, of course, more than a decade working right there on Whitehall in London. You're regularly going in and out of Parliament building, walking right through where this attack happened. So I can't even imagine what it felt like to hear that this had happened for you. So with your first-hand experience, let's talk about the location and the security, because I think when we think of London, like New York and other big cities, you think high security. You know, there's a lot going on, but yet this happened.
Absolutely. I think the first thing I'd say is, you mentioned before we went on camera, it's such the majestic tone of the city. And really this site, I work there, literally a stone's throw from where this happened. I do walk through that spot day in and day out. And I have to say we're all aware, right, because it is an attractive target to terrorists. You've got all those iconic tourist landmarks. You've got Big Ben. It was right there in the shadow of Big Ben. You've got Westminster Abbey. You've got Trafalgar Square at the other end. And in between, which is about a minute walk away, you've got 10 Downing Street, which is like their White House. So it's the seat of government there. And then you've got the Ministry of Defense, which is kind of like our Pentagon, is right there as well within a stone's throw. So, you know, there's lots of those tourist attractions, and yet also it is the seat of government. So it has a lot of resonance on a lot of levels.
And on the security front, the police officer that was stabbed and killed, I read, was not armed.
So,
unusual?
Such a great point. So Bobbies, like British police officers, tend to not, it's very unusual for them to be armed. It's a very different policing climate over there. Having said that, since we've had so many attacks, there has been a ramping up of armed police officers who are carrying and also trained in armed response. So when I walk up and down the streets, Laura, I do see a lot of armed police officers. They're outside 10 Downing, they're walking up and down Whitehall, they're certainly outside of Parliament. So they are there. There's a very visible police presence with weapons, which is something we'd associate with here.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, when you're walking around New York City, you see it all the time, and I commute on the rail, and so every time I go into Penn Station, you know, we've got all different arms of government or police going on in there.
Absolutely. And Capitol, the Capitol building, we see very visible, similar to that, very visible presence in that respect.
Right. Well, you know, the identity of the attacker has been revealed. We know he's a British national who has been living in Britain, presumably. We've heard that. He's been flagged as a potential threat before, but we've heard that the Prime Minister noted the police had not been monitoring him. So what can we make of that?
So that's such an important point. I've been getting asked that question a ton. Like, you know, I've heard a lot of characterization that this is a police failure. I really want to stress it's absolutely not. And I think it's just a misconception because we don't hear about the successes, right? And first of all, I also want to give, before I answer, let's give some kudos. I know how strongly you support our forces and our policing. You know, these people put their lives on the line day in and day out to protect our lives. And the reaction on the spot was absolutely spot on. It was professional, it was immediate, it was appropriate use of force. They handled it immaculately once it happened. Now, if we take a step back, why didn't they catch them before? Theresa May, the Prime Minister, is talking about not being in the picture. What does that mean? It's kind of like triage in a medical sense, right? There's only so much manpower, there's only so many resources, so you've got to triage to some extent. You can't monitor everyone, and the scale is staggering. I hate to say this, and I certainly don't mean to be alarmist, but there's a lot of bad people out there who wish very bad things on good, innocent people. So it's impossible to monitor every single one of them. And those hard decisions do have to be made. And I have the utmost respect for the services. They've done such a good job. And as you know, they've stopped plots on our soil.
Sure.
So
all the
these
things
could
we
have been
never hear
devastating,
about, right?
All these things we don't hear about. Yeah. So it really is, you know, it's unfortunate, but these are just the facts. These hard decisions have to be made.
This one person did a lot of damage by himself. He used a car. We've heard a lot about the threats of, you know, we've seen this, unfortunately, play out in other large cities and around the globe of using a vehicle to attack people. And it is something that we've heard a consistent theme coming from ISIS, that, you know, they encourage people, you know, do harm where you can and use vehicles. So here we go again on that. I mean, what can we do to stop it? I mean, I guess we can only put blockades.
Yeah, no, that's such an important observation. Like you said, I think the first point is it's kind of a crime of accessibility, right? It's much harder to make a bomb, get those ingredients. You might have to contact a bomb maker. You might have to be Googling how to make bombs, which is something that might get flagged on the internet. We all have cars. We all have blades, you know, because there's two parts to this, right? There's the vehicle and the blade. These are all things that most Americans have at home and most people have. So it is kind of a crime of opportunity. We might not have machetes, but we do have blades, whether it's for hunting or, you know, cooking in your kitchen. So yes, it's very much encouraged by the whole spectrum, really, of Islamic extremists.
And the location of getting something big, you know, a big get for them is hitting something right in the heart of London.
Absolutely. So vehicles, again, they're looking for terror, chaos, fear, right? And headlines are very important. Headlines are important to them because it's a recruitment propaganda tool, and also because it promotes fear, right? The more they've got headlines, the more people might feel like they're living in fear, and that's really handing a win to them. That's what they want. They want to disrupt our lives and make us change our way of life, so they're kind of dictating the rules of our day-to-day life, and that's not okay.
And as far as moving this forward, we know that there were 6 raids this morning. So can we expect more of that?
You know, it's interesting. Again, I just want to give them kudos. They reacted really quickly, right? They didn't. Maybe they didn't have. They might have had some very early knowledge. They said maybe he's not a threat right now. But the second that they knew who he was and identified him, they moved incredibly quickly, right? 6 raids. That's a lot to mount in a very short period of time. What will they be doing next? I think digital. So all those sorts of things we see on CSI kind of shows. Looking at the phone records, trying to map out associates of the associates. We don't know. I don't know that they've confirmed in public whether this person is directly linked to those raids, but I think it's a reasonable assumption. And we also saw the Brussels raid. So it'll be interesting if there's connections, right? Because in the Paris vehicle attacks, there were connections to Brussels as well, those 2 attacks that we've had recently. So it will be interesting to see if Brussels and London were linked. But I expect they'll be working through the night, and they've got lots of teams on it. So I think you asked me before the show, should people be living in fear? And my answer to that would be absolutely not. You know, this is unfortunately a reality of life we're going to be dealing with, at least for our generation and maybe the generation to come. So let's not let them win, and let's carry on with our daily lives.
Absolutely. Book those trips, go about your lives. And I always tell my friends, when people say, how do you stay safe, I always say, eyes up. Because everybody's walking around with their phones, and you're down, and you're trying to figure out this. And I always say, eyes up, you know, pay attention to your surroundings. It's the best and really only advice sometimes you can give when we're living in this type of climate.
And also people can feel empowered because there are things that they can do. You know, if you see something, say something. If you hear something, say something. All these terrorists, the one thing they do have in common is other people in their lives. They have family, they have friends, they have colleagues, they have coworkers, they have neighbors, they have the local shop that they get their milk at. All these people are in contact with them. So if you have that feeling, often terrorists take advantage of the great things about our country, right? People are reluctant to say something because they don't want to be perceived as racist or you know, casting judgment. But in this kind of era, we do have to be careful. So it's worth saying something and let a professional decide.
Allison Berry, it's always good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Perspective. Thank you so much for bringing us up to speed. You can follow Allison on Twitter at Allison_Berry, and make sure to check out Allison's new radio show, Tactical Talk, where each week you get to spend time with the world's top special operations warriors. Very cool. I'm Laura Ingle. This is Fox News.
He lost both legs below the knee, protecting our country from the front lines in Afghanistan. But that's not stopping him from protecting us here at home.
No, it's not. Matthias Ferreira just graduated the Suffolk County Police Academy in New York, becoming the country's first full-time double amputee cop.
Joining us now with his heroic story, newly minted police officer Matthias Ferreira. Nice to see you this morning.
And congratulations.
And congratulations, and thank you for your service to our country. It's an unbelievable story. Take me back to 2011 when this all happened.
So I was a machine gunner attached to 1st Battalion, 8th Marines, 2nd Marine Division out of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And we were doing OEF, which is Operation Enduring Freedom. We were deployed to Helmand Province and basically trying to win the hearts and minds of the people, and basically there to help out in eliminating the threat of Taliban forces. On a night of January 21st, 2011, we were doing a night op, which is basically going inside of the compound and making sure that there were no combatants there or any type of IED-making materials. Upon going inside of the compound, everything was cleared. We were setting up to basically stay there overnight and begin the missions the next day. I was on a rooftop with the rest of my machine gunners, and we were just setting up the gear. And I said that I'd be back, that I was going to go get the rest of the stuff. And when I jumped off the roof, I landed on a 30-pound bomb. Upon the bomb going off, both my legs were amputated below the knees, and I had a broken pelvis and shattered femur. And thank God, you know, my doc, Tommy Casey, was there. My CO was there. Everybody was very supportive, very professional. Everybody was able to stop the bleeding until the medevac got there. And once the medevac got there, I was able to, you know, basically start responding.
And you were taken to Germany. How long was your recovery process?
So the recovery process, I would say, was about a year time lapse from beginning to end. From Germany to Walter Reed Army Medical Center, you know, I don't remember too much from there. It was just remembering waking up in Washington, D.C., and basically start recovering from the wounds and walking.
At 3 months, it took you to start walking, which is amazing. Why the police department?
So the police department and the military are very similar in many different things. We have the knowledge of, you know, basically learning both traits, except in the military you're just taught to follow directions, follow instructions, and basically the police department is something along those lines, except you're released to become a police officer on your own. You have to make very important decisions on your own.
But you wanted to do this since you were a kid.
I did. I wanted to do this when I was a kid. When I moved to the United States from a small country in Uruguay in South America, I noticed men in uniform, in a United States Marine Corps uniform, and I told my dad that I was like, wow, I want to be that guy when I grow up. And my dad told me what it stood for, you know, fighting for the freedom of this country and giving us the liberties that we have. And, you know, the police department and the military being so similar, I said if one doesn't work out, then the other one will.
It's incredible. Nothing has stopped you from wanting to serve this country. As I mentioned earlier, the first double amputee, right, from the Suffolk County area.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, that's incredible in and of itself. And we were talking in the commercial break when you first mentally realized what you had lost, and you had lost both of your legs. What was going through your mind at the time, and what kept pushing you to want to keep fighting, to want to keep giving back in that moment?
Well, at the time, it was my family that kept me going, you know, forward. Now I'm married with a 2-year-old daughter, and really I just want to continue to live my life, to live for them. I know that I would want my daughter to grow up being strong-willed and not letting anything stop her. You know, but my fellow classmates in the police academy and my staff and everybody there was just so supportive that it's really hard to just fail. It's hard to not continue to go on when so many
a lot of people
go.
wouldn't, so we really commend you this morning, and Suffolk County is a safer place having you on the street.
The country is better.
I appreciate that, sir.
Because of people like you.
You're an inspiration. Yeah, anyone thinks that they've got a tough day, you're an inspiration.
That's exactly.
Officer Matthijs Frere, we all need to hear your story today.
Thank you for having us. I appreciate that. Thank you.
In September of 2009, Marine Sergeant Dakota Meyer disobeyed commands entering a firefight so he could save his fellow soldiers, an act that earned him the military's highest honor.
Today, we pay tribute to an American who placed himself in the thick of the fight, again and again and again. In so doing, he has earned our nation's highest military decoration, the Medal of Honor. And we are extraordinarily proud of Sergeant Dakota Meyer.
He selflessly charged to the sound of the guns. Joining me now to commemorate National Medal of Honor Day is Marine Sergeant Dakota Meyer. Dakota, thanks for joining us this morning. First of all, obviously, thank you for your service to our country and the valor that you gave for it. If you would, for our viewers, just give a sense. You deployed once to Iraq as a scout sniper with the Marines, then to Afghanistan with an embedded training team, meaning you were working with Afghans. There was an ambush in a village. You were there briefly. What happened that day?
No, thank you so much for having me on. Well, we were going into a valley over there, and basically the village elders had said that they wanted to renounce themselves from the Taliban and bring us in, and we were going to go in and help them out and provide security for, and able to, to be able to get them to start supporting the government. It was something that we do over there all the time, and we were going in on the mission, and my team was up ahead, and while I stayed back with the trucks. And, what it had turned into, it was the village elders had set us up. They had set us up and brought the whole team in. And so immediately the team was under attack. So, they were stuck up in the valley and they were cut off. It was so coordinated that it was insane. So what ended up happening is Staff Sergeant Rodriguez Chavez and myself, we kept going in a few times to try to go get those guys out.
You walked into an ambush. You call it going in a few times. What you did is, under the hail of gunfire, saved fellow men as well as Afghans, earning the Medal of Honor, which I know has changed your life, and you've been a fantastic representative for veterans. Also speaking out about the threat we face, whether it's the Taliban or ISIS, this attack in London just this past week, yet another reminder that we've got a threat from radical Islam. How do you feel like the West and America is confronting that challenge at this point?
I mean, I think that we're going to start confronting it a lot better than what we have. I mean, first off is, I've been saying forever is we have to state what the problem is before you can find a solution. So I think that we finally have an administration that's not going to be tolerable to this type of behavior. I mean, look, this country was founded to where anybody could come here. They could come here through the right process. They could come here to this country, and then what they could do is they had the same opportunity as anyone else. You could be whatever you wanted to. You could be whatever you wanted to be in this country and be successful, and I think that's what makes us great. But what I can say is that if we don't go and head this on somewhere else, if we don't go take this threat on, that these people are not tolerable. These people want to go against that every moral fiber of our being that made us great. And so if we don't take it to them, then I promise they're going to come to us. And then this thing that we have it's called a choice, for us to be able to choose who we want to be and do what we want to do. It'll be gone. That is their #1 goal, is to take that from us.
Ultimately, you're exactly right. It comes down to ideology. On this Medal of Honor Day, a medal you have worn now for a couple of years, just briefly, what does it mean to you to wear that medal?
You know, it means a lot to me. I mean, it means so much to me. I mean, it represents so much. It represents what the greatest of this country is. I mean, it's not my medal. I'm not a Medal of Honor recipient. I'm a United States Marine that received the Medal of Honor. But it represents the sacrifices that were made on behalf of this country. It reminds me every day the sacrifices that were made on behalf of this country and the great men and women who have done it.
Amen. Well said. I know as a vet myself, I look at guys that wear that medal, and you wear it for every member of our generation as well. Thank you for being such a great representative and for your service to this country. Thanks,
Thank you. You're the man, Pete.
You got it.
We're back with an inspiration, Matias Ferreira.
That's right.
Nice to see you this
Welcome,
morning.
officer.
Now, you're from, you said, a small country. Where were you from?
Uruguay.
Uruguay. So tell us about that. I mean, how old were you when you moved to the U.S.?
So I came to the United States in 1996 with my family. My mom's brother lived in Marietta, Georgia. So my parents had the opportunity to instill the American dream by bringing my brothers and I to give us a better future. And, you know, ever since the beginning of us moving here, I just remembered wanting to be in the military or the police department, and just like any other little kid that wants to be a cop or wants to be a firefighter, wants to be a pilot, you know, so I just think that that's what kind of kept me going on.
This is our After the Show right now, and so for those who don't know and they're watching this online, you lost both of your legs serving in Afghanistan in 2011, and 3 months later, after having lost your legs, you were up walking again. Talk about that first time that you got back up. Was it with prosthetics? How did that feel for you?
Yeah, it was with prosthetics. It was a very liberating feeling. You know, for 3 months I was in a wheelchair or, you know, bedbound, and I didn't really know exactly what I was going to be doing with my life. I didn't know if I was going to have the possibility of walking again or running again or driving a car or hanging out with my friends at a bar or, you know, just doing anything that we do in life today. And thanks to technology, it's just advanced so much that it allowed me to start playing ball. It started to allow me to play golf and ride a motorcycle and, you know, just live a normal life.
It's incredible. Sitting next to you here, you would never know that anything happened to you.
I appreciate that.
You would never
and walking
know.
over too. I mean, it was just.
You would never know. I do wonder. You've been through so much in your life, and you're continuing to want to serve this country. Does anything scare you? Do you ever feel in the moment nervous?
I get nervous. I get nervous to the unknown, but I think that I have a very supportive group of colleagues that I think we rely on one another to take away that fear and just make you feel comfortable, and I think I'll go with that.
And they were just showing photos of you at the Suffolk County Police Academy. You go through that. You lose your legs. You learn to walk. You get back here. You decide you're going to serve again. What are you most excited about or looking forward to the most as a newly minted police officer?
I'm looking forward to working with the community. You know, there's sometimes that people look at the wrong perception of police officers. You know, police officers are there to help people and want to be open to people coming up and asking for help or asking for, you know, advice or just coming up to saying hello. You know, the police officers, firefighters, EMTs, everybody just puts their lives on the line every single day so we can live a life, you know, without fear and anything unknown. So like I said, I'm looking forward to working with my new colleagues and just getting around and showing that, you know, life without limbs is really limitless.
And that's a great message to the American people, just to say hi to a police officer, just to thank them for their service. You say in Suffolk County, you get treated so well there. It's a really good community.
I do. Everybody there seems to be so pro police officers, you know, very supportive of the community. You know, we try to help and give back as much as I can. I can't speak in the terms as a police officer because I haven't started working yet, but I've been approached by police officers in Suffolk County with very professional mannerism and, you know, uniform's always looking sharp and ready to go and give back.
You have a 2-year-old?
I do. I have a 2-year-old daughter.
2-year-old daughter. She's seen you in the uniform?
She did. She was screaming daddy the whole time yesterday during the academy graduation. So it was an honor to be around my family, my friends, and everybody else who was there supporting me.
And they keep you going.
Absolutely.
Well, you keep all of us going.
So true.
You really do. You are what makes this country better. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for continuing.
Officer, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All right. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone.